Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm David Hopper, Austin Bureau Chief of the music site 360degreesound.com. For this installment of our long-running Author Talk series, I'm joined by John S. Garrison, author of the new 33 and a Third book on the 1990 album Red Hot Blue. It's a Cole Porter tribute album featuring Cole Porter standards interpreted by a wide variety of artists, including U2, Annie Lennox, David Byrne, Katie Lang, among many others. The album, which was accompanied by an ABC TV special and music videos for the songs, was one of the first major AIDS benefits, and the album sold over 1 million copies. Author John S. Garrison is the author of 7 books, including Glass and The Pleasure of Memory and Shakespeare Sonnets. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's
Hey.
gonna be great.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and for the viewers, yeah, this is the book. It's in stores now. The latest 33 and a third edition or entry. It's number 185, and
Yeah.
here's the CD, which you can find it used. It was a big seller, so there's a lot of copies out there if you still rock with the CD format. But yeah, John, I was wondering if you could please start by giving us a little context for this 1990 album, kind of what was going on with the AIDS epidemic in 1990 and kind of the social and cultural things going on.
Yeah, sure. One of the reasons I wrote the book is because many people lived through that whole period of the 90s in terms of the music and also in terms of the pandemic. And I wanted to kind of provide a way for them to kind of go back there and think about how they were feeling at the time. But like a lot of people weren't there at the time. And it's hard to kind of understand how people felt and what it was like. And I really wanted to kind of capture that. So 1990 was for the pandemic, for the HIV pandemic, it was a time when there weren't viable treatments. It was a time when there was no end in sight. Shortly thereafter, it became the number one killer of Americans 25 to 44. And it was also part of this period when lots of people were sort of being revealed to be HIV positive. So you think of Magic Johnson, Oliver Reed, the dad from the Brady Bunch, Rock Hudson. Like it just seemed like at any moment someone else can be revealed to be HIV positive, and on this cusp of when there weren't very good treatments, a lot of these people would die shortly thereafter. So the album comes out at a time when not very much had been done by the music industry, really about sort of fighting against the epidemic. And a group of people came together and decided what they wanted to do was really do a big push, as you said, for an album. There was a public awareness campaign, and there was also a major television special that featured music videos by major directors.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about the decision to do Cole Porter love songs. Why was Cole Porter chosen as the theme for the album?
Yeah, sure. In some ways, Cole Porter's kind of a surprising choice for an AIDS benefit album in 1990, because you got to figure they really wanted to target maybe a lot of people who hadn't heard of Cole Porter. Cole Porter's in some ways from a much earlier era because his music is part of the American Songbook. It's part of these jazz standards that really came out of kind of post World War One and then into World War Two era. But I think one thing that happened was they seized upon these really kind of timeless love songs and used them as a way to talk about the kind of the enduring power of what Cole Porter wanted to capture. So Cole Porter's songs are all about falling in love, they're about loss, they're about mourning. And it ended up being a curiously accurate match for the period that was captured by those same emotions of really feeling like folks are being lost left and right for a lot of people. And what's also true is that Cole Porter himself was a closeted gay man. So he wrote a lot of these songs for either people who he was in a relationship with or just expressing feelings of feeling like an outsider. And Cole Porter also, at one point, had a tragic horseback riding accident which crushed both of his legs. So he experienced a lot of bodily trauma as well. So these songs come from a place of loss, of injury, of chronic pain, of love that wasn't approved by society. They may come from an earlier era, but they're really talking about the same emotions and same strife that people had on their minds during the AIDS epidemic.
Hmm. Yeah, certainly. Um, yeah, the album opens with "I've Got You Under My Skin." I guess one of Cole Porter's probably better known compositions. This interpretation on the album is done by Nina Cherry, and the song starts with the rap and has some a lot of lyrics that were kind of written specifically pertaining to AIDS. I wonder if this is one of 20 songs. We won't be able to get into all of them, but if you want to kind of give us your breakdown of that song and how it kind of communicates the project's message.
Yeah, it's interesting because almost all the artists decided to keep the songs as they were as Cole Porter wrote them. Even though there's actually a long history of changing Cole Porter lyrics and adapting them for the times. But yeah, Nina Cherry was one of two different artists on the album who adapted the lyrics and really significantly adapted the song. It starts with a rap that tells the story about a woman she knows who acquires HIV through injection drug use. And injection drug use, like gay male sex, was one of these topics that people really weren't talking about or didn't want to talk about, or felt forbidden to talk about in the public sphere in 1990. But she just like starts her song right with it, and talks about how sharing needles can transmit the virus, and how that's something that it's a behavior that we have to talk about really openly. It ended up being really controversial, even though her song was actually one of the most well known and best reviewed songs on the album. When it came time to air the television special associated with the album in the US on December 1st, World AIDS Day in 1990, ABC took that took that song out of the television special because it seemed so controversial for its frank talk about HIV and HIV transmission.
Mhm. Oh, interesting. Um, yeah, so U2 does Night and Day, which I believe you write is the most recorded of all the
Yeah.
Porter tunes. Then they had a pretty big hit with that. I think you said it peaked at number 2 on the Billboard rock charts. So, yeah, what did you think of U2's interpretation of that song?
Yeah, it's funny. When I think back to 1990, I don't remember the album. And I don't remember knowing about the album. I don't remember having the album. But I can really clearly remember seeing that video on MTV. It's directed by Wim Wenders. It's a really sort of haunting vision. Bono's on a city rooftop singing. You get this real sense of him as this isolated lover singing out. It's it's an amazing adaptation, but it's a song like all the songs with a really interesting history. And the book goes into the histories of the songs, kind of how they relate to the artist and the Cole Porter. But with this one, um, "Night and Day" was a song that Cole Porter wrote for his lover Nelson Barclift, who was a soldier who went off to World War II. So it's a song that's genuinely um, it's about a love that some people in a society might not approve of, same-sex love back during Cole Porter's life. It's a song about worrying that someone who you love isn't going to survive your relationship, that saying goodbye to someone might be the last time you say goodbye to them, with him going off to war. So these feelings that have allowed Night and Day to be adopted so many times and has made it such a popular song, they're universal feelings, but they're also feelings that Cole Porter had that map so well to what was going on with the HIV epidemic, where people felt like they couldn't talk about the love they were feeling, but also people felt like at any moment someone who they cared about, whether it was a friend, family member, or someone they were in love with, might contract the virus and be sick shortly thereafter.
Hmm. Yeah, and another song that you write really connected to of what was going on with the AIDS epidemic was "Every Time We Say Goodbye," which on this album is recorded by Annie Lennox. Um, so I wonder if you wanted to talk a little bit about the poignancy of those lyrics, yeah, with regard to the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, that's another one of these just super fascinating songs in the album that has a really rich backstory. It that was another song that was popular by Cole Porter around the time of World War II, and it became particularly popular as a song that captured how people were feeling about either saying goodbye to people when they went off to war or saying goodbye to people who were going off to war. This sense that we're saying goodbye, like we always say goodbye to each other, but that this actually might be the last time we say goodbye. It's a really moving song. It's a really touching song, and it's a really kind of symbolic one for Annie Lennox. Her music video was supposed to be directed by Derek Jarman, who was a well-known British filmmaker, but he became very sick around the time of the recording with HIV, and he wasn't able to record the video with her. He was a close friend of hers. So in the video, and it's an amazing video that everyone should look up and watch. In the video, she's singing the song and she's watching these sort of gritty home movies of a little boy playing at the beach and playing in the backyard. You kind of think in the video that it's I don't know, maybe it's her childhood or it's someone she knew. It turns out these are home videos of Derek Jarman, the person who was supposed to direct her video but became very sick. So the song becomes a kind of homage or a kind of goodbye to Jarman, and in fact, he died shortly after this video by a different director was produced. So the song and the video really capture this essence of feeling like lots of people around you were dying, which was the experience for so many people living through the epidemic. It's a song that shows that that feeling is the same for people, whether it's going away to war, whether it's fighting a war against a virus. And the other kind of important thing about it for me is that this began a lifelong involvement in the fight against AIDS by Annie Lennox. She didn't know a lot about the disease, hadn't heard a lot about what was going on with the politics of sort of AIDS care, preventing HIV transmission before the project, but afterward and since has been one of the major musical artists involved in the fight against AIDS.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you also wrote that this was kind of the start of Bono's AIDS activism as well, right? So,
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
yeah.
now,
Mm.
he's the main kind of spokesperson for this organization called RED, which is
Mhm.
a major global fundraiser for the fight against AIDS, especially in the developing world. But he also, this was kind of the first step for Bono and U2 and several other artists on the album, where it just really took someone reaching out and asking for them to get involved. And once they learned about the situation and produced music for it, it really became a lifelong commitment for them to fight against the disease.
No, no, that's great. Do you have a favorite song on the album?
It's a good question. A little bit. It changes for me
Yeah.
constantly, but I'm now. I kind of have on repeat right now. Jody Watley does a version of "After You," who,
Hmm.
which is a song by Porter that's kind of about what it sounds like. It's about when you're so in love with someone, you can't imagine losing them because you can't imagine there ever being anyone else. In her video, it shows her singing and unable to have her lover, who's also black, come into the club to see her perform because the club itself is an all-white club where she and the other performers are black. So it's a really interesting video to think about because it helps you think about how kind of racial discrimination tracks to discrimination against same-sex couples in Cole Porter's day and even now. But there's actually kind of an interesting backstory to that one also because when Jody Watley wanted to get involved with the project, her producer said, "No way." They said, "If you record a song for Red Hot and Blue, then people are going to think A, you're a lesbian, or B, they're going to think you have AIDS." And she was like, "I don't care what people think. Like, this is a super important thing. This is something I want to do. Like, no matter what, I'm totally in." And like, I love the song because the song is beautiful, but I also love the song because it's just symbolic of how much bravery it took at that moment in time for someone just to stand up and say, "I can get involved in this project, and I don't care if there are lots of kind of negative public feelings about the disease or about people who get the disease." Like, people were just like, "No, I'm standing up for this because it's right."
Yeah, sure. It's a great backstory. I enjoyed reading that. that section in the book. Um,
Cool.
yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, just a few more. The book is it's part cultural history and also part memoir. You write about coming out as gay in the '90s, and the book opens with your memories of seeing a gay male chorus perform a Cole Porter tribute in the '90s. Just want to talk if you could talk some generally about why this 33 and a third book was so personal for you and your approach with bringing in those life experiences.
Yeah, it's when I've shared the book with gay people my age, they've said, "Oh yeah, oh my God, like that whole period. I can't believe we lived through it." When I've shared the book with younger gay people, younger queer people, or even just younger people in general, I've shared it with a lot of my students who are high school age, and they just feel like they had no idea. Like they had no idea how terrifying the AIDS epidemic was. They had no idea how prevalent homophobia was, just in a way that it isn't now. Like certainly the world still has people who are homophobic and gay people are discriminated against at times, but they just had no idea what it was like to have grown up in that period. So part of my goal in the book was to communicate that because I feel like we've come so far and the world has changed so much. It's important we don't forget what it was like for a lot of people growing up. But I also wanted to include some memoir elements because I myself wanted to sort of figure out what I was feeling when I was in my late teens and early 20s and sort of where I was. Um, as I said earlier, like I remember the album, but I don't remember when the album came out. I don't remember I didn't see the television special at the time, but I can remember a couple of the songs and I remember all the artists on the album. So I wanted to use writing about the album as a way for me to recover not just what happened to me during that period, but really how I was feeling at the time. So the book itself is kind of it's an archive of like different stories about my own growing up, being in high school and in college, but it's also an archive of feelings that I had as a young person that I think I don't know I would imagine any reader really can relate to.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I guess finally, just what would be your pitch for the viewers and readers out there who maybe looking at picking up this book? What you think people could find interesting and why you feel it's an important entry into the series.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one thing I really liked about writing the book is that the book intertwines three different elements. So I think it gives lots of different kinds of people lots of ways in. On the one hand, it's a book about Cole Porter. It's a book about why Cole Porter's songs have stayed popular and in the popular imagination for so long. It's a reflection on his life and how his life informs different kinds of songs. So for anyone interested in Cole Porter, the history of jazz, then it's going to really sort of speak to things that they may have been curious about for a long time. But it's also a book that's about the AIDS epidemic, and it captures sort of what exactly the period was like when we were at the peak of the epidemic before effective treatments were available. So for anyone who's curious what that was like, or for anyone who lived through it and wants to sort of look back and reflect on the experience, then they're going to find a really kind of rich trove of I don't know, incidents and feelings that will sort of recall for them or evoke for them what that whole period was like. And then finally, a little bit I want to tell my own story because I think that period when we're sort of exiting high school and sort of becoming college age, whether we go to college or not, when we're in our teens or 20s, music's so important to us when we're trying to figure out kind of who we are, what we want, how we feel about our lives. So I really kind of poured my heart into this book, I guess, and talking about what music meant to me at that time and still does, and how music helped me figure out sort of who I was and who I wanted to be. And I think telling that story, I really wanted to help other people think about what music's done for them in terms of figuring out who they wanted to be at a different time in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciated how like you said, how many different things the book was because I mean I'm a big fan of jazz and standards and Cole Porter, so I enjoyed that history, but also the memoir aspects and I was just a young kid when in 1990, so I didn't really know the extent of the epidemic, so that was fascinating history as well. So I encourage everyone
Cool.
to pick it up. 33 and a third, Red Hot Blue by John S. Garrison. Thanks so much, John. Thanks
Thank
for
you, David. This is great.
have a great one. Take care.
Okay, take
Bye.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.